Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Red Circle. Also, the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn the notifications on. Also, we want to mention, starting around November 1st, we will have a new Discord that you can subscribe to. If you're a previous subscriber to Off the Floor, the Winnow service has been discontinued. That was out of our control, but we're actually going to be creating something even better on Discord. So the details will be here on the podcast as well as on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Also, do want to mention Better Edge. Use the code 5RSN. Get $20 to play. This is the legal betting partner of the Five Reasons Sports Network because you're betting against others who use it. It's a social betting app. It is not something where you're going against a bookie. So go to betteredge.com. Use the code 5RSN. Get $20 to play. And now, today's episode.
Yikes. Five on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the Five Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. I'm back. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. We got Greg Sylvander, who filled in capably on the podcast in my absence. And we're going to talk about these first three games. And we're going to talk about where they head as the Miami Heat now go to Milwaukee to play Dame Lillard. This is going to be one of those PTSD games. Heat fans are going to be very frustrated if it doesn't go the right direction. There's going to be a lot of complaining on the timeline. We know what is coming, but we really want to focus on where the team is right now going into this. And then they come back home on Wednesday to play the Nets. So they got a couple of home games after this. Greg, I'll start here. You know, the biggest takeaway, and I'll be honest, I wasn't able to watch most of the games live. I've caught up on them since I was on a trip with my daughter. But the offense is problematic. And, you know, I think that when we look at who they've been missing, you expected the defense to struggle some because you're taking out, you know, first thing, they don't have Haywood Highsmith, who we looked at as a rotation player, and they're not going to have him probably for another couple of weeks, even though he did say he was progressing. They haven't had Josh Richardson. They've been kind of unclear about when he's going to return, although I don't expect it to be over the next couple of games. Caleb Martin didn't play in the preseason until the last game, looked rusty. I talked to him after that game. He said that progress was kind of up and down. So I wasn't real surprised that he sat out a couple games after that. And then they don't have Jimmy Butler for the second game of a back-to-back. And that comes after a preseason in which he did not play in any of the games. That was dental related. This was characterized as rest. We knew that Jimmy was going to miss 15 plus games this season. It's par for the course. It comes with the territory, whatever cliche you want to use at this point. But I don't know that we thought it would happen so early in the season. And I think that was a bit of a shell shock for Heat fans, particularly after he didn't play in the preseason. And so you figured there'd be maybe a ramp up on the court instead of a ramp up on the sidelines, at least for that third game. And it also came after he didn't play particularly well or seem especially engaged against Boston, which is, if he's going to be engaged in any regular season game on the road, you'd figure it would be that one. So adding all those things together, you look at that, that's four elite wing type defenders that they haven't had. And so I'm not surprised that the defense has been choppy at times because you're not playing your best guys. You don't have them available. But the offense, there are enough good offensive players in this rotation right now. And one guy we're going to talk about specifically, Tyler Herro, but also, you know, Kevin Love is in there for his offense primarily in the starting lineup. Bam has made some progress offensively. And, you know, even off, you know, Jaquez getting minutes, Jovic getting minutes in the last game. I mean, these are players that at this point tilt a little bit more offense than defense, and yet they're really struggling to score. I mean, in the last game, you know, they got it to 82-79, and then Duncan misses the three, and then it was a 16-1 run from there, and they couldn't get anything going. So before we get into the specifics of the players, are you concerned about the offense in general?
I think that the right answer is yes. I think that that's what we've all wondered about. is how is this team going to score points enough? Not just, I think when we get to the playoffs, we're less concerned because it's like then, Jimmy can lock in on a team or that the rotation shrinks. But getting through the regular season, it's tough when you see them at 28th in field goal percentage at this moment. I know it's 3 games in, 41%. They're shooting 8th in 3-point percentage at almost 39%. So it's hilarious that their 3-point shooting is almost better than their overall shooting. That's not normal. To me, this is a situation where the margin for error with this group from the get-go, if this wasn't going to be a top-heavy big 3 led Dame, Jimmy, Bam type of team or some other star, insert star there type of team, it was going to have to be guys like Tyler stepping up, other players coming and shooting probably above their heads to a degree just to make this work because you had to get through the season. You expected Jimmy to miss games. You expect Kyle to miss games. Probably Kevin, you should now expect to miss games. So you need guys to play well. And I feel like, honestly, as we probably will get into Tyler, I haven't hated the way that he's approached games in terms of trying to find his shots and also being aggressive. His 3-point shooting hasn't been bad. It's just that right now they need him to be a little bit more than he is so far from a just sheer efficiency perspective because he is getting the lion's share of field goal attempts. He is shattering his career high right now through 3 games, up or over 22 attempts a game, Ethan.
And that's the thing. He's like 4th in the league in attempts per game, but the efficiency is not there. And, when, you look at his games, and I've watched, some of what happened in the past 2 also, he's getting to some of his spots. I mean, the second game in particular against Boston, he really did. The first game, it kind of took him some time to kind of work through it. But then, as he said after the game, I've shot worse than that before. And he kept shooting, and they need him to keep shooting. But I guess that's where the roster construction thing starts to come in, because we've talked all offseason about how they need somebody to take the burden off Jimmy. And it seems, at least through the beginning of the season, that Jimmy wants someone to take the burden off Jimmy. And so there's a deference now to Tyler. And I did look like a lot of taking turns in the first game. And then the second game, Jimmy just looked disconnected. So, I think there has to be a little bit more of a connection between the two of them when they're sharing the floor together, like this idea of staggering them and having Tyler come in for Jimmy. I get it. You get Tyler with the second unit, but we don't really know what the second unit's going to look like yet because the second unit is so much in flux. So I'm going to, again, tell people to be a little bit patient with this process because they have so many guys who are out. And then at the same time say, if they're going to take any kind of a step this year in the regular season, they're going to have to find ways for Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler to all be efficient. And, Tyler, it's the most challenging for him to be efficient because where his spots are on the floor. We're not expecting him to shoot 54%. But he can't be in the mid-30s. And I don't expect he'll be in the mid-30s for too much longer.
Agreed.
But when you are in the mid-30s and you're taking that kind of volume, that's where it becomes, an issue as we go forward. And then you don't want to see a situation where Jimmy's not getting his looks because Tyler's getting his. And I'm not going to go to that place I went to last year where when Tyler scores a lot, they lose. Because, again, against Boston, if Tyler doesn't do what he did, they're not in that game. So we have to account for that. But I do think when you look at this team offensively, things don't come easy for them. A lot of it has to be schemed. A lot of it is different sets that they will run. And, again, some of it was the Bam Duncan stuff that they would rely on. Then it's the Tyler Bam pick and roll. Well, again, if Jimmy and Bam are going to end up being their leading scorers, which may be what this drifts to, there needs to be some kind of a 2-man game that exists between Jimmy and Tyler that makes each of them more effective. So, again, I'm not in a panic stage here. The Milwaukee game may be troubling because I think it's going to be hard to guard them, more so than hard to score on them. Milwaukee's lost some stuff defensively. We've talked about it. No Drew. Dame is in there. Um, I think that, and obviously offensively, they're going to be an absolute juggernaut. But really, Giannis and Brook are their only plus defensive players at this point. So if they can't get anything going offensively with Jimmy on the floor, with Tyler, with Bam, then we start to have some of these questions again. Like, can they be a top level scoring team? Not even top level, but top 15. We said maybe they could be in that 12 to 15 range. And you mentioned it. They've shot the ball pretty well from three. So that's one of the things that plays into it. Like, they're not going to consistently shoot like that, even if they do get some guys back like Martin, like Richardson, like Highsmith, who have shot the ball decently in the past. All right, we will get into a little bit more of the Milwaukee matchup here as we go forward. I do want to mention another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that is our friends over at Water Cleanup of Florida. Reach out to Michael Robert and his team, WCUFL.com. That's WCUFL.com. Go to them before something happens. They have a preventative maintenance program there as well. But also, if something does happen, the water damage, the mold damage, and all of that, you can go to them after the fact, and they will do an honest job for you. They'll give you the right price. Mention 5 Reasons. Be sure to do that. And again, reach out to WCUFL.com. If you've got the schmutz,
they got the guts.
All right, let's do something a little bit big picture here before we close. It's going to be a shorter episode today, and then we're going to regroup a little bit as a team plays on Monday. If they get off to a 1-4 start, which is possible, they have Milwaukee, and then they come home for Brooklyn, which is a team that beat them in their current incarnation the last couple times they faced each other last year. How do you approach that as an observer and a fan after this offseason?
I think it's going to begin to drain fans, I think. And so that's the balance here, is that when you see them, like, honestly, after the Boston game, I felt good. I know that there were moments to feel bad about that game, and there were frustrating aspects of it, and none of it was perfect. And ultimately they lost, and there's no participation trophy stuff. That's not what I'm trying to get at. No moral victories, but they look like they could compete on the same court as Boston. And then in Minnesota, to just essentially let that game completely slip away and get away from them. They got to get one of these next two, to me. And I feel like the Milwaukee game would really inject life back into the fan base, into the observers in general. To see Jimmy come out and play them well. It has been announced, and I know in our post-game 5 on the Floor, I said that they were going to have to make a decision on Middleton playing tonight in Atlanta as we're currently recording this. Milwaukee plays on Sunday evening and then again on Monday. They did announce that Middleton will sit tonight in Atlanta and play against Miami. So that means that they'll have their full contingent in Milwaukee. So hopefully Miami will as well. And it's a tough thing. It's how much can the fans, and there's a difference between the casual fan, I guess the fan who's just going to catch games on TV here and there, and the core fan, right? Because the core fan has followed this step by step by step. And to now go up to Milwaukee and let's just say Dame slaps a 35 burger on them and they lose, and then you come back home and the first game back from a road trip gets ugly, you run the risk of a season flying off the rails. And that's what I think that they need to guard against, because they're good enough. We know that, like, when these guys get in that mode, that they can compete with anyone because they've got the same 2 linchpins at the top of the roster and Spo coaching them. But if you fall too far behind in the standings, things start to get weird, attitudes change, relationship strain. So that's where they just can't let that get to that. And to me, the game to get, because Brooklyn is the low-hanging fruit back home, for me, it would be very impressive to go into Milwaukee and make a statement victory in that arena.
Yeah, I think so. And obviously that'll change the perception of the fan base on everything for at least a moment. But I do feel like there's going to be a lingering overhang on this season because of the offseason, regardless of what was the Heat's fault and what wasn't. And you're going to need to show progress from the guys that the fans perceive they held on to, even if Portland never even gave them a chance to give them up.
Yep.
And Tyler is foremost on those. Jaquez, Jovic, Caleb to a certain degree when he gets out there. Josh being sort of, and he's a minimum contract, but being kind of portrayed as the Strus replacement or the Vincent replacement. You're going to need to see production for these guys. And I don't think it's going to be enough to say, well, we never got healthy, because Heat fans have heard that for a long time. And then they start to look for reasons why they're not healthy. And that's not a place that you want to go either. So the idea is, how many of these guys can you get back? Because the depth is a strength of this team. I believe that. They believe that. But when we're already at the stage where, and I don't think Drew Smith has played badly the last couple of games, but when now you're counting on Drew Smith for 15 to 20 minutes is not a place that you wanted to be at this point. So I'm going to give them a little bit of a break-in period, get some guys healthy, see how Spo integrates them. I don't love the starting lineup. Everybody knows that, but you got to give it a little bit of a run to see what it looks like when you have guys coming off as reinforcements off the bench and you have your full complement. But the 20-game rule, I think, which is the one that Pat Riley applies typically, I really do think that one applies this time. And I don't even know if we go quite that far, right?
Agree.
You cannot be 6-9, 5-10 through 15 and have people engage with this team in a serious way, even though we know how close they were to missing entirely, and they made it all the way to the finals last year. So that's going to be the hesitation that everybody's going to throw at me, from the front office and other places. And I understand that. Give us some time. Let us work it out. I just don't know that a certain segment of the fan base is going to be that patient, even if you can throw the finals thing at them, because again, you're looking at teams. If you lose, you lost to Boston on the road. Now you see Milwaukee. You'll get them in your place at some point, but it would go a long way to beat this team on Monday night, even if you don't have your full complement of players. And it would go a long way to see Jimmy look engaged and look like the Jimmy Butler who can carry you if he needs to, even though he shouldn't have to at this point of the season. All right. Thanks to our sponsors, Water Cleanup of Florida and Better Edge. We'll have more content with you throughout the week. Also, want to thank those who came out to the Rock Esports Center party on Friday night. That was a good time. And the 2K tournament, we're going to be doing that again in about 2 weeks. And look for our new Discord.
Thank you for listening to the Five on the Floor on the Five Regional Sports Network.